Aiki ko warapa ararahi kuma chupan sas. Karu ko warapa linguish kuma araras wa karu. Payok nukun krish rihesh. Karu waratai pa araras wa mora payok. Waratai pa arara chupan sas wa mora payok. Karu yav wa mora pa nanuk yawi jwati. Ikarev nukshadavri gesh. Payur pananutat. Atavat pa ararapakuri tanapakuri wesh. Payen. Hey, akina, hey, akina, hey, akina, yakina, yakina, hey, akina, yakina, yakina, hey, akina, hey, akina, hey, akina, hey, akina. Yakina, 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 yakina. Yakina, 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 ooh, in the way. So that song is a
Beautiful.
spur action song. So I'll be productive with our action today.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yoto, Crystal, thank you so much for that song. Very powerful, and yes, absolutely. Spring into action today. So let's move along with our panel. So today we have a special couple of guests for everyone. Our panel is on speaking and using your language with Lauren Bomelin and Stan Rodriguez. And I'm going to turn it over to Vince, our panel moderator. So Vince, take it away.
Right. Thank you, Carly. Can you all hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wonderful. Well, Horshetuhi Makam, so Kanakarakat, Vincent Medina. So good day to you all. My name is Vincent Medina, and I'm going to be moderating a panel today with two friends and also two people that are role models to so many in the California Indian community, Stanley Rodriguez and Melashne Lauren Bomlin. And I'm going to, in just a moment, ask them to be able to introduce themselves because, you know, these two people, the bits that I know about them, they're dynamic, and it's important that they have that ability in their own words. I also wanted to thank Crystal as well for that beautiful opening that she just gave us and blessed us with. Thank you, Ashimak, for that. So before I start, I just want to say that for both Stan and Melashne, as a young man, when I started to work with California Indian Language Revival, when I started to get involved with ICLS, it was really empowering to be able to see that there were people who, outside of my own community, who were doing work that was similar to what I wanted to do and what I wanted to see, what our people wanted to see happen for our own community as well, and to see ways that people have in different ways, you know, because California is a diverse place. We're not all, you know, the same. We have different, you know, languages. We have different tribal expressions, different, you know, religions, but we also have a lot in common, a lot of commonalities, and our languages also experience a similar decline, and our people also refuse to let our languages go away. And knowing what I've known through the work of Melashne and Stan, they weren't willing to let their languages go away, and they did everything to be able to keep their languages, Talawa and Kumeyaay, going strong, and now inspiring another generation to keep those languages going even stronger. And I just want to say how grateful I am before I start, for the inspiration that you've all been, and in California, it's good to always be able to see those people doing this work and know that we're not alone, that we're part of a community of language activists that are working to keep our languages strong. So I'm going to stop there and just say thank you to Stan and Melashne for everything that you do for your own people and for California people as a whole. And I like, if you could we're going to just have a conversation today talking about your process, about your work, and also if, just so that people get to know who you are. And I know that most people already do, but if you both could introduce just who you are, where you come from, where are your families from, and also which areas that your people specifically come from as well, and then and your languages also. And we'll go north to south and then south to north. How about that? We'll rotate. So how about with Melashne, if we could start with you, and then Stan afterwards. We'll hear from you. So thank you both.
Thank you. Shukran Nidla. I'm glad to be here today with all of you and appreciate your work that you're all working on. I know the challenges too and the joys that you both receive going both ways. So welcome, and I'm glad to be with you. So Melashne, I'm named after my great grand uncle. Was a dance maker in our village. And then when I became of age, the old people says, time for your name, because you have to be certain age to get a real name, and they named me Melashne, and so that's been my name. I did grow up in Del Norte County here in Northern California. Throw a rock too hard to the north, you're going to hit Oregon. That way you're going to hit the ocean, and that way it'll hit Karuk Mountains. South will hit the Yurok, so they're south of us. And the language I was reared in was Tolwedani. I did grow up in a speech community that was the tail end of an absolute fluent speech community. And then on my dad's side, that's my mom's side, they've got the Tolwedani stuff going on. On my dad's side, he's from the Trinity River, so he was Wintu. From his center of the world is Waiketanpum, known as Lewiston, California, now covered up with the water under a dam. And his language was Penutian. So he taught us the Penutian he remembered as children. So I know some terminology and some words in the Waiketanpum language. And just grew up here, went off to school. We were the first generation shipped off to this place called college. But we survived, and thank God for a lot of community, a lot of family, and shattering the culture barrier. We were the first generation. I see Nancy shaking her head. We were the first generation to shatter the cultural barrier for here and enter into the quote unquote, the white man's world, officially. And we made it back to our communities and did our work. So a little bit about me.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you. And Stan, if you could also just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you come from.
Sure. Okay, peña mate pecham ti peña mit stamunya tuhenya makopai wulkwana. Peña mat mat pi wulkwanan kopai. Ne pome hil koi puknachis na waken kanapm kanapnya mamble maragia apesho puknachis moyagnya sakan peña mat mera oya kuslava ne pom lepit tik ne pom mayum nya wait ne warad nyep just humau ne pom na song. So I just want to say hello to everyone. My name is Stan Rodriguez. I'm from the San Isabel Reservation here in San Diego County. Here in San Diego County, there are 18 reservations. We have more reservations in this county than any other county in the country. And 12 of those reservations are Kumeyaay Ipai and Kumeyaay, which is pretty much the same thing. And in Baja, there's 6 Kumeyaay reservations. So our people are on both sides of the border. es porque yo puedo hablar español también, es porque cuando yo fui allá en otro lado, necesito cantar por velorios y otras cosas. So our people have endured 3 waves of encroachment, one with the Spaniards, then with the Mexicans, and then with the Americans. So keeping all these things together has been difficult. At this time of the 4,623 Cumyas on both sides of the border, there's approximately 41 people who still speak the language. So under the UNESCO 9 factors of language stability, 5 being stable, 0 being extinct, ours is listed as a 1, which I think everybody here can relate to. And you know how we can turn that around is important. But I was born in Madera, California. My I don't know if I told you, Carly, but my mom and my dad, my mom was from up there in that area. They met at a professional wrestling match in Fresno at Selin Arena. My dad took her out on a date and never brought her home. And that's how I came to be. So God bless professional wrestling, or I wouldn't be here. So that's a little bit about me. Oh, and I am on tribal council for my reservation. We have we've had talks about that. You know, for anybody who's ever been on tribal council, been an elected official, it is a totally thankless job. I just want to tell you. I mean, but the thing is, it's service for the people, and it's something that needs to happen. So, I just want to share that. That's just a little bit about myself right now. Okay.
Thank you, Stan. And thank you, Melashne, as well. I know that with both of you, this is a very abbreviated portion of who you are, but through this time together, we are grateful to be able to learn a bit about your language journeys and what's led you to where you're at today. And with California language activists, with people who are cultural bearers, there's always a lot of hats that are being worn and a lot of different roles that are taken in the community. And I wanted to ask if you could both talk about what your role specifically in strengthening and language revival has been within your communities. I know that you're both teachers in different ways, and also, again, many different things that you both do. But you could talk about what your role is and how you got started in this work. What compelled you to begin this? And we'll just rotate, keep going. So we started with Lauren Melashne last. So we'll Stan, we'll go south to north this time. And okay. So you could take it away.
Okay, thank you. When I was growing up, and with my father's family, I had aunts who speak the language, relatives, aunts and uncles. Now, one of the things that was happening was they were products of the boarding school. So I would hear them talk in conversation with each other. And when I tried to jump in there, they'd say, why do you want to know this? Why do you want to know? And it was something that was just, I wanted to learn. They may give me a couple of words and then they would just say, go out and play, which is pretty much a norm in native country. But as that was going on, as that continued, seeing less and less people, there were no people. Well, there was one person that was 3 years older than me. She spoke the language. It was one of my cousins. And the reason why she was speaking it was because she stayed with her grandparents who did not speak any English. So they had to use it. And it just bothered me that our language was, it was falling to the wayside. People could say, greetings, people could say hello to each other, but in actual conversation, I would hear people a little bit older than me, they would respond to people talking the language and they would speak in English. So these are, as you know, this is what's happening when people become passive speakers. So I wanted to learn, and I was going to different people, going to different reservations, just practicing as much as I could. And ICLES helped me to get into a master apprentice program. So I got with a master speaker whose wife was Kumeyaay from Baja. She spoke no English. And they lived with me for 3 years. And he spoke some English, but mainly Kumeyaay and Spanish. So those 3 years, it was total immersion for me. And I seen how immersion worked. And I was a singer too. My teacher was a singer, so we would go to different reservations in Baja. And I didn't speak Spanish at the time, but learned how to speak Spanish while I was becoming more proficient with Kumeyaay. And then after, as I continued growing with this, I started teaching classes at Kumeyaay Community College. I was one of the board members and they needed a teacher. So I started teaching classes and eventually became the director of the school. And bringing language to the various reservations, to the 12 reservations in San Diego has been a priority. And also working with our counterparts in Baja so that we can develop interventions to reverse language shift. So that's a little bit about that.
Nice.
Thank you, Steph. And Malashne, would you like to share?
Well, my story is very similar in terms of the number of speakers or a community of speakers that were existing in the community as a child. My oldest teacher was born in 1873, and then my next oldest teacher was born in 1888. And then the rest of my teachers were all around 1900 to 1915. That was that generation that I hung out with for language. And our parents saw the same thing happening. Like my mother was a good passive user. I mean, she could speak the language when she stopped to do it, but she'd always usually answer in English a lot. So she was that first generation of moving over to the passive user generation. But her and her aunt, her sisters and family were noticing that we, the kids, were not getting anything. Like if they talked to us and gave us a command or told us go do something or come here, do that or whatever, we would just be like going, what, you know, and they didn't like that. So they wanted to change that. So I got recruited into the language program work. You know, it was a grassroots thing, nothing to do with any outside anything or no money or no universities, just the people themselves wanted this language to survive. And started, you know, approaching the elders. Now, a lot of them had been to boarding schools, a lot of them had not been. So we're kind of a non-res population, like we didn't have the protection of a reservation. We were thrown right into the dairy, right into the timber industry, right into the fishing industry, you know, and we ended up with a little rancheria of 163 acres. We had a 44,000 acre reservation that Congress had done away with earlier. And then we were left with this 163 acres here on the Smith, and then out in Crescent City, there was a 100-acre piece of land and a few trust allotments, you know, under the Homestead Act. And that's where I grew up on one of those. But so we kind of were forced to just blend, you know. We were also taught to be ashamed. We were taught that, you know, like, you know, to be Indian, first of all, and I couldn't hide it because I have this problem right here. I go out in the sun and I get weird looking, you know, which I love, but I couldn't hide that. You know, I didn't have the green eyes or the bluish eyes, you know, I didn't have the blondie colored hair, you know, I didn't have the, you know, the burnable skin in, you know, the springtime. And so, you know, I was stuck with this person, me, you know, so I couldn't escape like a lot of my cousins did. We had a whole batch of cousins that became Hawaiians. They said, oh, we're Hawaiian because Hawaiian was popular, right? Even I'm going, you're my cousin, you're not a Hawaiian. But they were lying to the white people to be popular, you know, because they didn't want to be stuck in this dark skin. Well, anyway, I went through all that sociology as well. But our community kept strong at it. And I got recruited, you know, by my family. My mother and my father were the biggest advocates for language survival and use. And when I got around Uncle Ernie, he was born around 1910, I think, you know, and he knew all the old timers. But he grew up, and his first language was Dani. You know, he didn't speak English at all until I went to school, and so I could ask him all kinds of things. You know, I could ask him the male questions or the embarrassing questions. You know what I mean? That you're not supposed to ask women about. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like whatever. And he would just tell me. You know, wasn't all backwards about it. But our problem was writing it. We did not have a writing system. And we just thought we had to have a writing system. So we tried to use, I'm watching this as a kid, try to write it in English. And they noticed that people who spoke the language could read it. But the moment somebody was a non-speaker, they would, use their English mind to interpret what they're saying, and they would blow it. And then there's sounds in Dani that don't exist in English, right? So that was a problem. So I was growing up hearing this problem. And that's how we had gotten involved with Humboldt State. My mother went down and met with the Center for Community Development, and a director there, Tom Parsons, had this Unifon alphabet that we started using and writing the language down for the first time. I remember the first time I was in school at 7th grade, I saw the first words written in Unifon, but it was our language. And so it was a journey like that. And then, of course, like I said earlier, they made us go to the university, and we're like going, why? I don't want to go learn more about white people. Jeez, last thing I want to become is more white. I'm trying to hang on to who I am, know me. And the other goal that arrived out of my personal needs was that I wanted to be able to speak to the Creator in our language. And that became a personal journey. Like I really, even if I couldn't talk to anybody else, if I could still talk to, there's our three main makers, and talk to them about my life and what's going on, then that would make me happy. So I had these little personal journey goals that I don't even, got popped in here somehow. So it's just been a process like that. I remember talking to the old lady one time. She lived to be 110 years old, and I'd go visit her, and she told me, she was, and I had when she told me the story, I had like a vision. She said, I wish you could talk to the old people. And I'm thinking, you're 100 years old, the old people, And she goes, when I was a girl, there was old people then. Well, those people were born in the 1700s, way before white intrusion and way before the Holocaust, 1851, And she said, they could tell you anything. She'd tell me like that, And then, because I didn't know until years later, her daughter, who taught language in the schools for 25 years, her name was Daishri Bernice. And she says, yeah, your mom and you would pull up in our mom's driveway in her station wagon, and she'd go, gosh, she was complaining. She goes, oh, here it comes. She called me Inga in that thing. He's going to make me have a headache today. Because I'd go there and ask her questions, and talk to her. So I had a good time with this old elder. She became my gold nugget, in the bottom of the stream bed. She was just this. She always giggled. She always hummed. She wasn't Christian or doing something. She always had a tune, and she talked Indian straight out, and then of course she spoke English too, and she also spoke Yurok, which is the southern language from here, fluently. So she did both those languages fluently. So that's kind of how I got rousted into this equation, and then ended up going to university, got my teaching credential through ITEP, just like Mary and others, and then later needed information, so I ended up going to grad school at University of Oregon and got my degree in linguistics there. And that really helped me move way forward in terms of, because I saw all the mechanics and understood the mechanics, but I didn't have labels for any of it, and I didn't know these processes were all labeled already, by linguists, and I, whoa, oh, that's what you call that. Oh, that's what you call that. And that's how this functions. That's what's happening here, and blah, blah, blah. And so it was a 2-year fast run, but I had a 2-year sabbatical, but I had to get back to teaching. So I came back and got my degree done, and got my thesis finished, and then got back to here and just kept on teaching, language as well as other things.
Thank you, Milashna. That's it's really nice to hear those stories, especially about who you both learned from and how you got started in this work. And obviously, you were both. I mean, we're all born with it, And so it's when you're able to have those people, though. I know, like for myself, we all have those people who we think of, and maybe it's many people that inspire us of those old ways. My great grandmother Mary, she's a speaker. And she's somebody I think of, all the time when this work to strengthen our language, when it's getting stronger and stronger. And, I feel like that's a common theme that many of us have, are those older people that we come from. Thank you for sharing a little bit about their stories. I don't want to stay too focused on the struggles, because I know that there are some, though, that come with language. And I'm just going to ask, we're not going to stay too focused on on just the hardship, but it is part of language revival, and strengthening language is overcoming those struggles and how we do them. And of course, with language, you know, those struggles are going to be different based on where our languages are at, which region we're from, what time our languages experience a decline, you know, how early it was, how late it was. But, you know, what I really want to stay focused on here is the positive, which is how we're able to continue on despite that, you know, because, you know, you could go out there and read anything about native languages by mainstream for the most part in the last 30 years. And it's not going to reflect the same way that we're going to talk about them, which is from a place of strength and persistence and continuity, even if it means that our languages for a generation or two went to sleep. You know, they're still living. You could reawaken them. And just so that we do touch on this, though, I wanted to ask both of you, Melashne and Stan, if you could please describe a struggle or a couple of struggles that you did have and how you were able to overcome them. Ways that when you began this work, or even in the middle of it, or maybe even something you're experiencing now, who knows, you know, because this is always, there's always, it's a continuous thing. But how did you overcome a hardship when it came to speaking language and passing it on? What made that a success for you to overcome it? We'll start with you, Melashne.
Well, you know, when you're learning a new language, which I can speak to now, I didn't understand at the time, but I was mapping. I was using scaffolding between a language I already spoke, which is English, a lot of Dani, which I already knew, but I didn't speak it well, you know, I mean, you know, to my liking. So I would scaffold, and I didn't know that. So when I remember the word for house here is munt. Munt is a house or a home. Well, it's a house, not a home. And my brain attached it to the word mutt, like a puppy. It's a mutt. And for a little bit of time, that helped me remember munt because I attached it to mutt. Long enough to where that became a memory for me. And I can go back and actually see that time that happened. And that was early on, like mutt, 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 mutt. And I would go home and write it M-U-T-T, you know, and then, you know, and just write it down. But so I think it was the small little experiments and exploring it. I also ran into a lot of hostility. There were a lot of our L1 speakers. Our first language was Dani. They were hostile, you know, like Stan was saying. What do you want all that for? Why do you want to talk like that? You know, get growl at you. You know, you don't need, you're just going to hurt yourself. You know that language, because we went through persecution, but they went through better, you know, worse, you know, times. So they were trying to protect us. And then they, of course, those people who became Christians, you know, then it became Satan's language. It became anything to do with, you know, us was evil, you know, herbology and our theology was jacked up and, you know, whatever those kind of words. But so there was that operating too. And they were trying to reach across as well. So what I would do though is I'd try to trick them. I would go home and think, now how can I ask them about cedar trees? And I would just try to, you know, come up with ways to trick them really to talk about it. And my uncle, who would go back and forth between different churches and then come back out and be, you know, just an Indian and then go back into churches and back and forth. He was swaying both ways, and I'd have to be real cautious. So one time I said, well, Uncle, I know you don't want to sing those gambling songs for me, but could you just tell me the words to the song? And he goes, if I tell you the words, you'll know the song. I go, okay, that didn't work that time. But I had to always go and engineer ways to cheat them out of their information, you know, because, and it wasn't every time, but I had to sit there and think about that. Or if, you know, so it was always trying to figure out a way to, and then there were other people now that were ready to support you, ready to teach you something and share things, you know, they didn't have that particular barrier and so on. So there's all, and then when I started dreaming in Tolowa and Dani, I knew that something had shifted in me, you know, because I actually started dreaming that way, and so on. But anyway, it was just a gradual process, and then I kept pushing it and pushing it for myself, and I kept setting goals for me. I wouldn't call those goals then. Looking back at them, I was setting goals for myself, you know, and I wanted to somehow get on this horsey and ride it. And then the old man who was the carrier of the Nadosh ceremony, which I do now, he was the Chushnyamshne. He was the formula speaker for the ceremony, and they're all in Tolowa. And that also helped me too, because in those type of prayers, Chushnyams are always said the same. They're not changed. They're like scriptures. And he would raise his voice instead of talking. He goes, "Hey, this is not mean that such a just an again chetla hitu and lawa from a law. Hey," and that's a scripture about Genesis, you know. And then what you learn really is that's the part that makes a roadmap, and then the words just kind of fell into it. So it's like a chant, really, something like a, you know, kind of thing. So all these little things that happened that helped me learn, I didn't realize it. You know, I didn't understand at the time abstractly. I was just in the middle of it, you know. And so it's a journey of getting there somehow.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what you were just sharing. As you were sharing that, it's easy to get chills through your body. It's just such a, it sounds like such a powerful thing of hearing when early on. And it's good that you had that structure to be able to place those words in there and be able to carry that on. Thank you for sharing that and for sharing that journey. And Stan, do you mind sharing as well, you know, how you overcome some of those struggles that might have come your way?
Okay. Well, growing up in the 60s, there was a lot of things going on. You know, if you remember the Westerns, they depicted us as, you know, as the villains. They vilified us.
Yeah.
And, you know, the only good Indian was a dead Indian.
Yeah.
That's how it was in the early 60s. And, you know, as we continued, and, you know, then Alcatraz happened, then Wounded Knee happened, DQ happened. DQ was taken over, and Yakima was taken over, you know, things like this. So there was a paradigm shift that was taking place. And this was before the Freedom of American Indian Religion Act, which was passed on August 11th of 1978.
Yeah.
But anyway, I went to DQ. I went to school at DQ in 1975. And DQ focuses on decolonization, decolonizing the mind, talking about, you know, empowering individuals, taking a look at our culture and you know, holding that, having value to that. And to me, DQ University was a big step for me. It helped to ground me in what I wanted to do in the future. It validated who I was as an individual and the need to take those things into my own communities. So as I went, I could understand, I mean, just like what we were talking about, you know, people who, you know, through the boarding schools and whatever, they were trying to protect us.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what use is tribal sovereignty and protection of culture and language when there's no culture and language left to protect? So how could we do that? So, you know, going out and working with the people, and on both sides of the border. And in Mexico, the situation with Native peoples was even worse. So, you know, just going back and forth and just continuing to learn. And I'll tell you, one of the elders told me was, we're going to learn until the day we die. We're always going to be learning from somebody. And this is so true. But, you know, bringing this together for our people. And, you know, I liked what you said about, you know, that, Vincent, that, you know, you don't want to focus on, you know, the negativity. We could talk for years about that. Yeah. About what has happened. And what that breeds is victims. And we are not victims. We have survived. Mm-hmm. We are the products of survival. You know, we have struggled, our people have struggled, our ancestors have struggled, we have survived. And you can either look at it such as, you know, I am a victim and they've taken all this thing away from me and I could just be so angry. Or you can empower yourself. Because language and culture support each other. You really can't have one without the other because they're intertwined. And if you do your ceremonies, that is resistance. If you sing your songs, that is resistance. If you speak your language, that is resistance. You are not only telling the people around you, but you're telling yourself, you're telling your family that we exist. And, you know, even though encroachment has taken place, I have not been conquered. So to me, when people, you know, all of you, I say, Chachayachan, you know, I praise each and every one of you for what you're doing, because what that is showing is your soul is strong, that fire within your body is strong, because you have not let that up. And our ancestors are looking down. One day we're going to be with them. And what are we going to leave behind for our descendants?
Wow.
Carry. So this is, you know, this is what I would say. You know, we can look at it, you know, from the lens of, yes, we've been victimized, brutalized, and conquered. That means they've taken your soul. Or we can look at it, yeah, these things have happened, but I'm here. I can make it. Our community is here. We can pull our community together and be strong. So that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was powerful. You know, as both of you talk, it's you know, one of the things that I really respect about both of you is that, as long as, amongst many things, let me just say, but one of those things is your consistency, you know, and throughout the time, because I feel like I've known you both for about 10 years, you know, and throughout the time that I've known both of you, the consistency that I've seen of just like, you know, it could be in 2012 or 2018 or, you know, 2020, and that love for language and culture with both of you, it just radiates, you know, it's so obvious. And that just is such a good feeling to be able to hear, and also, you know, to know that we're a part of all of this together, all of us, and we're like-minded in that way of keeping our languages strong and not accepting victimhood. So thank you for sharing that, Stan, and thank you for what you shared, Milashne. And well, those, well, you know, the struggles, they are there, you know, we're not going to stay focused on that because we're here for a reason. We're here because we're not victims. You know, we come from powerful people, and that power will be carried on into our futures as well. So thank you both for that. And, you know, what you're talking about how culture is so tied in to language, you know, they're not separate. And often, you know, like, I feel like in Western world, there's these compartmentalized views of there's language, there's religion, there's culture, you know, and for us, there's interconnectedness between those things where they flow together. And, you know, both of you I know are, you're traditional singers. You both, you know, you both are highly respected in your own tribes and your own communities. And I've heard you both sing as well. And, you know, how powerful that is as well. And I wanted to hear if you could both share how song and these other aspects of culture, but staying focused primarily on song, but you, of course, say whatever you like, but how song can help be able to open up language, how that could be able to help connect people in communities to language who might not be as comfortable, you know, sitting down in a classroom learning language, or might not be willing at first. How can song be able to be a door to open up to language growing stronger? And Stan, let's go south north this time.
Okay, thank you. With the Kumeyaay people, there's approximately 22 song cycles. Each song cycle has hundreds of songs in it. Each song is in our language, and each song tells a story. So when an apok or an apprentice comes up, they start learning. Traditionally, what would happen is after they completed their puberty ceremony, they were presented with a rattle. And we say they become married to that rattle, or we say halma. In other words, what it meant is we're married to our way, to our religion. An example would, let's say Carly and I were gonna go to the happiest place on earth, Disneyland, and somebody calls me and says, there's a wake. We need some singers to sing all night. I said, Carly, enjoy, you know, the Matterhorn, but I gotta go and do this. Because we say that halma is, or that rattle is our first wife, and we have to go where it calls us. Now, with that said, you know, for young people to do it, because it sings, I mean, it starts at sundown and we finish at sunrise, singing all those song cycles. Each song tells a message. So when somebody first learning, like let's say you, Vincent, you want to start learning, you pick up that rattle, you're gonna be all the way at the end with the other beginning singers. And you start learning, you hear we sing one song, then we go to the other, then we go to the other. You're not going to remember all those songs. You're probably not going to remember the first song. It takes years to learn these. And this is, when we talk about school, this is our school. This is our, I mean, the world is our school, our Wamasha Schoolya. And your Kuchumayos, your teachers, they're the ones, who will pass that knowledge, because knowledge without sharing is not really knowledge. And that is the thing that they have tried to do. So we're sharing that and we're passing that on. Like I said, each song is in the language and it's redundant. It goes on for about 3 minutes. As you learn more of the songs, you can learn you can learn situational fluency with the language. And this can assist in language revitalization efforts. Songs alone will not do it, because you have to be able to use it outside of that framework too. But we'll talk more about that later. But yes, songs are our history. These are our oral traditions. It's our book, but the book comes out from within our heart. And when we share that with others, it's a powerful thing. I'll give you one example, and then I'll shut my snoot. One time I was singing over in Baja, over by the beach, close to Ensenada. And we were singing a song about the mountain sheep. And we say that the backbone of the mountain sheep, is the Milky Way, and that's where our spirit will go to the Creator. And when we were saying the Orion, which is the 3 stars or the 3 mountain sheep, what the mountain sheep teaches us is, because it lives in an area where there's hardly any food, hardly any water, it teaches us how to overcome adversity. And while we were singing, I was with the elders, I was with my teacher. I looked at all these elders who were dancing, and they had their hands out and they were looking up in the sky. And it was a powerful moment, because with the songs and the dances, we were walking across the Milky Way together, all of us. It was a powerful moment. That was a spiritual moment. Our ancestors, were there with us. We were all together. And it was one of the, some people would call it Maslow's self-actualization or whatever, but it was a spiritual moment for us. It was beautiful. And that, that is one thing that the elders said, that our way, it isn't an easy way, but it is meant for us to feel good. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Stan. Thank you for sharing that. And
okay. Sure. Okay. I think of song in the same way, similar. And I think a song too, I want to share another aspect of it that I'm sure you all may use, hopefully, and will be willing to use. And that is for personal growth. Sometimes songs will visit you and you don't know why. They're just a tune or a rhythm, and it comes to you. Maybe you're off not paying attention, and all of a sudden this little tune will come visit you. And when I was growing up, I had 2 messages. One was from the church saying, avoid that. That is Satan talking to you, and he's trying to trick you, because he'll teach you 1,000 truths to make you believe one of his lies. So don't you dare sing that. Well, then you talk to the other elders, and they go, oh, a song came to you? Sing it. And I go, really? Because I'm like really? Because I'm hearing 2 complete dichotomous things here, right? So yeah, there's a song coming to you for a reason, and you just sing it. It just belongs to you. It's coming to you. It's your song that's coming. It's visiting you. And what I got out of that too is that songs are beings. They're actually living spirits that live in this universe just like you and I, like everything here that does. And they come and knocking on your door, put it that way, and they come to visit you. And the old lady would say, sometimes you'll hum that song for who knows how long. And then eventually, if there's more, it'll come. Then the next part will come. And then after a while, and that song becomes a part of you, then all of a sudden, it'll reveal why it's visiting you. Maybe it's going to be for a ceremony, or maybe it's going to be for this or for that, or maybe it's a deer song, maybe it's a fishing song, those kinds of things. So trust in the innate spirit that lies within us, the thing that makes us alive, right? Our yesh, our soul, right? So that's one side of songs for me, is that. And a lot of times if I'm sad or I'm struggling, or sometimes I'm just happy and rejoiceful, these songs, my family gets disgusted with me because I sing a lot, but, like I'm around the house making noise singing, right? But, I don't care. I mean, I care about them, but I'm more interested in why this is visiting me and what's going on, or whichever. So that's that kind of a personal, journey, using this a song, using itself through and for you, because you're a vessel. We own none of this. We are just a vessel that it comes into us, it expresses through us. And the old people would say, if you continue to live correct, if you live right, they stay with you for as long as they want to. But if you choose to start living incorrectly, they will leave you, because you're no longer worthy, or I'm not going to use a worthy, just they just excuse themselves and move on to someplace else, And so that's that kind of a personal song. I'm going to call that a personal type song. But then there's structural songs as well, as Stan, you shared a really good example of, and we have those like in the Nadash ceremony. And the reason for Genesis, Nadash is Genesis. So we believe we were created here. We do cross and eat seaweed and sea lions from China. We got here by the Creator. He made us out of the dirt, whatever. We emerged on this soil, right? And the church, of course, tells us, and so does the Genome Project, you're all just, from Africa, admit it. Well, you can admit all you want, but we're from here, okay? But anyway, so in Genesis, during the ceremony, one of the things that you're asked of you, whoever you are in the world, is so you're out experiencing your life, right? And something really touching, beautiful, something you witnessed, something that happened, something you observed, and it touched the cockles of your soul. Then you put that into lyrics, and you put that into a song, and eventually when you once master that song, then you bring that to the ceremony, because it adds to the truth, the scripture. It adds to the ceremony, and plus, and you're bringing your ethos, you're bringing your spirit to that ceremony with that song. And so, like my nephew, he's one of the main ones, the last ones in our family. It goes on every summer to dry surffish on the beach. This has been a long time ago now, but he came running to me one time, and Uncle, I got to make a song. I need some help. And I go, what's going on? And he goes, well, he said, I was down there and we were fishing, and the red perch were, in the trough, and red sail perch, and, and then this, we're waiting for the smelts, but this big whale just came up really close to the shore, and we could see that whale, we could smell what he smelled like, and we see his barnacles, and we could hear him groaning and rolling in the sand, in that gravel. And he said the red sail perch got so afraid they just jumped out of the sand, but they got back in the ocean, of course. And so the smelt were running, and then here's this massive whale. And he goes, I've got to make a song about this. This touched me to my core. Like every fiber of my being was touched by this experience. So we did. So we figured out some lyrics. And a lot of times when you first make a lyric, the rhythm's not there yet. So we'd come up with the lyrics, slumps, cheletan, and so then at first it sounds kind of crippled, it's like he's trying to get a rhythm, and keep working it, keep fasting about it, or praying about it, lamenting over it. And so we worked on it a while, and then finally one day, you know what, let's go to the dance house. And so he said, okay, so we went there and built a fire, and I go, all right, here it is. We're just gonna pray now and ask this song to be free, or become what it's gonna be. And we did, and he started singing it. And this so it popped out, and bing, there it was. And so now that joins our dance repertoire for Nadash. And then there are songs though that are old, meaning like they're all that's left of them. When your grandpa or your uncle, you heard him sing it, is the rhythm. There's no lyrics left. It's just saying the same way every time, but there's no lyrics. It's just a tune. So there's those kind as well. So song, deer song. Like I'm watching over the river, and this deer came across the river, though, and she was always graceful, and I walked so often, light on the ground, and she flickered her ears, and she was listening to see who was around her. So I made a deer song about that, talking about how this deer, who she was, and how she graced herself, and how she walked so beautiful on the earth. And then the deer songs are appear for when you're going to go kill a deer, you sing first, you know, because you're asking to take the life of your family member, you know, to support your own life. Anyway, so songs are just a big piece of it as well. And even making up those little songs for the kids to sing, you know, like we even came up with Mahus Gash Shrichana, you know, happy birthday version of but in our language. And those kids pick up those songs quick. You know, you just translate them into your language, make your own rhythm out of them, make up your own original one. They pick it right up. You know, they don't have any barriers. They just start humming it. So songs are good. They're really good for a lot of reasons, you know.
Yes, thank you. Thank you both for sharing. And I know that these words that they resonate deeply, you know, and I know for myself, and I can imagine for others who are listening as well, you know, and I've been grateful to hear both of you sing, and Malashne with the Northern drums, and also Stan with the rattles. So thank you both for what you do, you know, to be able as well to carry on these other aspects and remind us how they're all interconnected in these ways. And it's beautiful to hear how receptive people in your communities are and willing to learn. I know here at home as well in the Ohlone area, songs are really a way that have helped people be able to learn language and keep that going and grow stronger with that as well. And something that I like to address before the next question is, it's about you know, you're both very educated in many ways, in Indian way and also in Western way. You know, you both have advanced degrees that you earned, that you worked hard for. And I also, before I ask this question though, I'd like to acknowledge that Western way, of course, that's just one part of the story, but our traditional knowledge, that's something that I know that we all center and value. And so by acknowledging, you know, that traditional knowledge is valid, that the way that we learn traditionally from our elders, that's valid, that's something that you can't learn in Western schools, but how Western knowledge also can help be able to learn different ways to help with these language goals. That's also part of both of your story as well. You, as I said, you worked very hard for your degrees, and you're also teaching, you know, your people language. And I'd like to ask you both, you know, how has education, and whether that be traditional education or Western education, how has that helped restore language in your communities? And how has these advanced degrees that you both have as well, have they helped your communities? And if so, how? And let's go north to south this time. So Malashne and Stan.
Well, you know, like I said earlier, when I was a kid and I didn't want to go to high school. Nothing there about me. I didn't want to go to Humboldt State. Nothing there about me. You know, I'm an Indian kid living along the river, you know, hiding out in the brush most of the time. Like literally, that's kind of how I lived my life. And was forced to get on the bus to go to school. You know, I hated it because when that door slapped behind me, I was in somebody else's world. I was trapped in this place for 6 hours, what I considered hell, until it slapped shut behind me and I stepped off and it slapped shut behind me. But of course, obviously that wasn't my journey, you know. When I was a kid, the elders told me, you sit down here, we're gonna talk to you. And you're going, I want to go swimming, you know. Of course, you never mouth them back, right in your head. I'm going to go swimming like the rest of the kids. And they go, no, you sit down here. You're going to learn all this stuff because when you grow up, you're going to be a teacher and you're going to teach all this to the kids. And I'm going, they're so funny. Like, I hate school, you know. And so what happened to me? Oh, they cursed me good, right? But actually, they could see something else. Who knows? But we went off to school, and you know, at first, you know, when you're taught, you know, America the Great and Cherry Tree and through the dollar across the river and all the lies they taught us, you know, thank God I had a dad at home saying, you know, those are all lies. All that is made up American history, you know. And I go, oh, thank God, because I thought we were really stupid, you know, or we deserve to be destroyed. You know, we'd be sitting there watching TV, and the Indian would get shot off the horse, and I'd, yay, hit the dust, and I'd just clap, and my dad goes, what are you doing? And I go, well, they killed the bad guy. And he goes, he just killed an Indian. And what are you? And I go, oh, I'm an Indian. He goes, yeah, that guy was your uncle. Boom, my world's never going to be the same, right? which is good. I'm glad he taught me those things. You know, I mean, to free myself from this colonial crap, that we're stuck in. But what I realize that education has afforded me beyond all that is it gives me vocabulary, it gives me concepts, it gives me authority. It helps me describe my world, my experience. It helps me interpret and transcend the crap of colonization, and also support who I am indigenously. Like when I first, there's a thing called How the Universe Works, is a series on TV, and they got new ones coming all the time. And the time that they talked about this Earth was filled with water by pelting asteroids, filled with ice, blew my cosmic mind, because in our Genesis, in our Genesis, it says that golden berries fell out of the sky until it filled the earth with water. And when I heard that on science, I was going, they're getting there. But plus it edified me, that I know our story is true. I've always believed it's true, but here is more evidence. So the cross-cultural education and experience is challenging because they only care about themselves. They only care about Western man. They only care about his theories. His way of life is the best. Everybody is, subordinate to, inferior. We conquered them. They deserve to die. They needed to give America to us because that's why we're here. And you didn't get any nanner. That's what we have to put up with as being Indians in school, right? Because they're ignorant and they're self-serving and they're selfish, right? They are privileged. All water parts as they come forward, just like for the Red Sea and Moses, right? But we are in the water. We're in the dirt. We're in the sky. We are here. And we can use that hatred and realize what it is and put it on a shelf and go, yeah, you can own your hatred. You can own your despicable, despised, and limited view of the world. And I'm going to live mine. And I'm going to have to torture myself. I'm going to have to fight for myself. I'm going to have to search for myself. I have to research for myself. But I'm going to survive. Because if they didn't, and then they didn't, and then they didn't, and I don't, then I'm making a mistake. So education is precarious, and it is challenging, and it feels threatening, and it is threatening. But at the same time, it's a tool. It's not the truth. It's a truth. It's a wisdom, but it's not the truth. The truth is you. The truth is what you are. The truth is what you live. The truth is what you understand. And Western man, since he's been here, has been trying to convince us we're not. You need to discover yourselves, know yourself, live yourself, pray for yourself, fast if you want to, eat for yourself, work out for yourself, read for yourself. Because what's you is yours. What you learn becomes your tools. It does not change you. Jack Norton taught us a concept at Humboldt State as a freshman. Undifferentiated continuum. Here you are in the center. That's my world, not my little world, that's my world. I go to college, I go do something, I go to the military, I do something, and I get some new experience, and my world gets that big, and it scares you. Then you take it in, and you rush home to your spot, right? But then pretty soon, oh, my circle's that big. Now, I get some more experiences, right? And the same process just keeps happening. My fear as a freshman in college was I was going to become a white man, or all lies. It never changed me. It helped me become stronger me. It helped me speak me. It helped me live me and defend me. And that's what I think education can do and will do if you allow it to and you trust it.
Thank you. Thank you, Malashne. Those words are so inspiring to hear. And, I feel, again, these are things that so many of us can be able to identify with, and also, know that traditional knowledge that we have is valuable, and in spite of the shame that people have tried to impose on us, our people have never let those things affect our self-value. So that's how we could still be able to be in this Zoom room right now, keeping our languages strong. So thank you for sharing what you just did. And to Stan as well, do you mind sharing some of your thoughts on education, Western education, traditional education as well?
Sure.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say our people value education. You know, when somebody's learning to be a singer, that's an education. When they're learning how to hunt, that's an education. Everything that we do is an education. However, Western education is an education that is skewed. One of the things that they've done is they have in the past, and they continue to attempt to marginalize our people as Native people. You know, just like when you're saying, you rooted for the bad guy that got shot and got knocked off the horse. He was an Indian. I remember when I was 5 years old, sitting on my grandmother's lap. She had the only TV. We all, I guess my father and uncles chipped in, bought her a TV. And I was sitting on her lap and we were watching a Western. And there was a white guy, their wagon train was being attacked by the Indians. And he would shoot. Every time he shot, 5 Indians would fall. It must have been a good shot. And then he told his wife, because she was helping him reload, save 1 bullet for you, just in case, because you know what those red devils would do to a white woman. And I asked my grandmother, what would they do? And she said, probably marry her. I said, oh, maybe that's why. So, and then later on, one of my teachers, who used to be a stuntman, I asked him, how come so many Indians fell when they took a shot? He goes, because you got paid $5 a day for being an extra. If you fell off your horse, you got paid $20. So every time they heard a shot, everybody fell off their horse. Then they get back on and they do it. But these were, the media, all these things were conditioning the people. Same thing with the pedagogy that was developed in primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions. What did they do? I mean, they glorified, European knowledge, and they marginalized or vilified Native knowledge. They seen it as crude, as savage, as archaic. Mm-hmm. And this was something that as we continued, that was the reason why Columbus came. That was the reason why so many of our people got killed. That was the reason why all these people came, because they brought civilization to us. They brought civilization to us. And that was how we were taught. And there's still people who think that way today. Oh, when you hear about the Columbus statues being taken down, and you hear some people saying, "Why?" He was, because that's the way they were raised. That's the way they were taught. And I have to say, we were taught that too. But sometime during that time, the truth came that this was a lie, that this was propaganda, that our people were dehumanized. Yeah. We are human beings, and this is why education. I mean, there's academia, and then there's organic scholars who are our traditional knowledge keepers. Now, for our people, how can we marry the two together? Mm-hmm. And this is the reason why Kumeyaay Community College came into being, because we've seen the rate of dropouts. My grandparents, neither one of them completed school. My father did not complete school. Most of my relatives didn't complete school. I was kicked out of high school. My sophomore year, I was kicked out of continuation school. I got my GED in Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. They had a program called the High School Equivalency Program. It was a 1-year program. I finished in 4 weeks, because when I wasn't going to school, I just spent time at the library. I wanted to learn, and which is something that we all have. But the thing is, developing, our courses and I'll just use Kumeyaay Community College as an example. Our history classes, we have History 1 and 2. It teaches us about our history, and this is documented, that when the Spaniards came into San Diego, we fought against the Spaniards. We burnt down the missions. We attacked them. They did not really make a strong foothold in San Diego. And when the Mexicans came, the Mexican era, San Diego almost fell 3 times to Kumeyaay attacks. You'll never read about any of those things in the history books. And then when we talk about the 18 treaties that were made, you know, you were talking about the genocide, you know, up to 1851, 1852, they made 18, you know, they were making treaties. The Treaty of San Isabel was created on January 7th, 1852. It promised us a reservation from the Mexican border all the way to Riverside County and from East El Cajon all the way to Ocotillo in the desert. These were one of the 18 treaties that were never ratified down here in Southern Cal, along with the Treaty of Temecula, because what was going on? People were coming in from the Carolinas because of the gold rush, people who had Confederate leanings, and this was before the Civil War, and they petitioned the federal government that if you ratify these treaties, they would side with the Confederacy. So why ratify those treaties when they were going to make those huge land grabs? And even the reservations today, they were you know, Hitler talked about the creation of concentration camps, modeling them after the reservations. If you look at South Africa and their townships, they were modeled after our reservations. And if you ever go to South Africa and you see those, you know, townships, I mean, it's squalor. You know, people are, I mean, just massively housed. You know, people using one spigot of water. They modeled that after the things that they did to us here.
Right.
And if we do not educate our people, if we do not let them know of what happened, if we do not teach our own culture, our own language, our own history, and give an opportunity for people to let that seed grow, then we are doing our people a disservice. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Add real quick, I know we're at past time, but teaching your theology, extremely important. Even if you're a biological scientist that doesn't believe in, you know, God and all that, you know, baloney, but teach your religion. Like, talk about your Genesis. Talk about your value system. Talk about your teachings. You know, don't spare yourself a minute on that, because you have a right to believe and practice an indigenous way of life. We lived on this continent for eons and eons, and the last 10,000 years of our existence here was very civilized. It was very, you know, agrarian. We took care of the hills a certain way. We lived here in prosperity for the last 10,000 years. Is a long time. Do not let our legacy die in you, and do not let it die in your grandchildren and your children and your great-grandchildren, your nieces and nephews. Teach them that pride. Teach them the truth about who we are, and not accept this completely washed out, you know, destructive, internalized, oppressive system that we've been given. And learn, love your kids, love yourself. We're taught not to do all of that, right? And we're stoic and we're standoffish and we protect our heart and all that crap. I was taught by the old people that only a man can cry. So think about that as you go out in the world and, you know, live your life and share your truth. Find your truth, start practicing it more. It is your right. And don't buy into the paradigm that you're evil and that you're going to go to hell and all that stuff. You know, like, we believe we came here before we were made, and we believe we're going to move on after we go from here. That's our traditional belief. That is not Christian. That is nothing else. That's our traditional belief. We come in this world from the pool of life. We exist in this body for luckily 80 to 100 years. We expire, our yesh leaves, and it goes back into the Yamet Deni, to live in the place of the sky people, and it lives there. So you've got to get out there and turn yourself free and let go of these barriers and these restrictions and these dogmas that they've placed on our heads, on our hearts, within our bodies, our self-image. And it's just a lifetime's joy of being who you are and practicing who you are and learning more about who you are and loving yourself, period. Because we have been taught not to, you know.
Thank you, Malashne. Yes, it reminds me that not a few years ago, we had one of the themes for our Languages Life, which was Indian love, which was all focused on Indian love, on Native love, and how, you know, really love has carried on our people, you know, been a force that's been allowed our people to carry on, you know, love for, you know, the young people, love for the elders, love for our culture, for our homelands, you know, and love's been something that's always been part of our condition, you know, as Indian people. And, you know, the things that other people have tried to impose on us and take from us, you know, that's not us doing that, you know, that's outsiders doing that. And hearing you both speak, it reinforces so many of those thoughts that I have, and you know, many in our community share. So thank you for those really inspiring, beautiful words, you know, that are real, and you know, we feel them. I know I do for sure. And I wanted to ask, because we were going to end at 12, but we want to keep this going, you know, because you two have a lot. No, we never want you to shut your snoot, Stan, ever. So always keep talking, and we're grateful, you know, for what you both share. And there's all of these restrictions of time that are in Western society as well, you know, so it's nice to be able to have this be a little bit more fluid, where we can make those breakout sessions optional for those who want to go into them. Carly is making those breakout sessions optional, but for those who want to stay in the conversation and ask questions, reflect, ask comments to Malashne and Stan, this is a time also to really learn from two very, very, very you know, influential language teachers and cultural bearers. But I had one last question as moderator before we move on, and before, you know, we open it up to Q&A. And if you could both share, both of you, you know, because again, you've done so much, and this has been your life's work, you know, and you affect people in positive ways all throughout the state. You know, I would even go and say, you know, throughout the country and internationally as well, because your voices and your words have been shared. But if you've met somebody who was just beginning this work, to begin working on reviving their language, working to start to speak for the first time, whether they were learning from documentation and had no speakers, or whether they had maybe a couple of elders who were still speakers around them. Let's say maybe they weren't certain about how to speak, how to begin. You know, some people even feel little bits of shame that was imposed on us from the outside. How would you, what are the words that, or advice that you might give them to put those things aside and to carry on so that they can become the next generation of speakers? And we'll start with the South. We'll start with you, Stan, and then move to Malashne.
Okay. For people who still have speakers, language speakers in your community, work with them. Immersion, I'm just going to say it. Immersion is the best way to learn language. You will learn if you do it correctly. If you stay in it and you don't go into the path of least resistance, break into English or whatever, if you stay in your language, you will learn it. You just need to develop a way on how you're going to stay present with the person. And there's other techniques that can be used along with it, such as recording your sessions when the master speaker is talking, so you can review it in between and just hearing it. That is how you're going to learn the language. Now, for people who have no speakers left, what I would say is this: can you revive a language that is dormant? Oh yes, you can. In 1948, when Israel, 47-48, when Israel became a state, people were coming, Jews were coming from all around the world, and they spoke many different languages. So they needed to have a common language, so they revived the Hebrew language. They were able to do it, and they did it through massive immersion. I mean, they had to do it. And that language now is a living language.
Yeah.
So for people who are learning just, I mean, through the Harrington Notes or wherever you're getting this information from, what I would recommend is work as a team. The more people working on it, the stronger you will get. And start to phase out English. Start inserting the language, using it wherever you go. I've seen this in Hawaii, where a group of Hawaiian educators, they wanted to learn Hawaiian. So they were going to school, and they got all rented rooms in the same apartment complex. And they made a pact that whatever they learned that they were going to use. And they made a pact that what they were going to use, well, it was going to be their secret language. Nobody else would understand. As they continued with that, they gained proficiency. And that is the thing. Now, for the people out there who are, what's the word for it, perfectionists, that want to speak it perfectly, just perfectly right, I'm going to tell you something.
Yeah.
You aren't. You will not. I do not speak English right. I don't speak, any language right. I speak it correctly at times. However, I enjoy myself. In other words, give yourself permission to brutalize your language. Use the language. As you continue to gain proficiency, you will clean it up, but use what you know. Use what you've learned. Get it together. And, there may be an elder or somebody will come in and they'll say, well, you're saying it backwards because you're trying to talk it like you talk English. Okay, note to self, flip it. And as you continue to grow, that is what's going to happen. But you got to use the language. That's the only way you're going to gain proficiency. So that was something that I would say. If you're getting it out of the book, use it. Use what you know. Continue to build on it and continue to grow. That's it.
Yeah, thank you, Stan. Those are all excellent points. Absolutely. I want to tell you to forgive yourself immediately. This idea of perfectionism or purism and all that, throw it out the window. Stop being OCD about it. And forgive yourself, and because you're learning something new. And you're also learning it, though, unfortunately, the tough part is you're learning it probably on your own or maybe with a few people if you're lucky. You don't get to go down to the supermarket and hear this language. You're working on this in that vacuum. So it is a challenge. But forgive yourself because you have to learn it. You have to be able to finally say it. You have to finally get the courage and, to do that. So forgive yourself, be forgiving. And this purity idea, what I want to encourage you to do for those of you who are looking from written sources or a few recordings, find your cousin language. And I know this doesn't sit well with some people, but I'm going to say it anyway. So if I speak a version of Dene, and I know another group of people who speak a version of Dene, and another group of people who speak a version of Dene, by cross-referencing, I can learn a lot. And I can understand how they form nouns, maybe. And I say, oh, well, if we would have said it that way, we would have said it that way. But I understood what they're saying. And what happens to all of this is we want to go back to the pure state. And we want to talk just like grandma and grandpa or whatever. I'm just sharing with you, I feel that's a mistake. I think that you need to look at the resources around you. If they have your same grammar, yeah, they might have some surface things that are different, don't let that conquer you. Like I was talking to, some people that go south of us, and they were saying, well, over the hill, they have an N in their language, but on this side of the hill, we don't. And I go, but say the rest of the word's the same, but there's an N sound, in one syllable, and I'm going, and what's wrong, so what? So take the N out and throw it away then when you speak. If that's the problem, but be resourceful. Use those other resources of your cousin languages, have the same grammar. There might be some word lists in there, some nouns, some verbs, some colors, all that kind of stuff. That's going to be resources to you, little recordings. What does your language, they actually record what your language sounds like when it's being spoken, those type of things. So be forgiving, look for other resources, trust them, avoid being a purist. And I mean that in the best sense of the word. Yeah, we want to say it right. We want to learn the best we can. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying, if you lock your head up to start with this perfectionist thing, it's going to limit you. It's a barrier you're going to have to get over anyway. And you're going to have to just stumble it out there and say it, right? At the beginning. And then just keep practicing it and speak what you know. Speak what you know is your fluency. You're starting out with 10 words, that's your fluency. That turns to 20, 40, 1,000, that's your fluency. So you've got to start your wheel turning someplace, And so I'm just encouraging you, best I can say it, and Stan already hit a lot of great points on how to get there, but just, do it. Just try it, say it, just give yourself license, man.
Well, thank you both. And that reminds me of an elder who I heard years ago, who was talking about the language giving ourselves permission to excuse ourselves for mistakes. Because when a baby is learning to speak language, you know, there's going to be mistakes that are made, but you don't reprimand the baby and tell the baby that they're doing something wrong. You know, you encourage them to speak correctly. And hearing, you know, how welcoming both of you are in your approach, it's something that I feel really strongly about as well. And I feel like many of us share that belief. I am done with these questions that I have as moderator specifically for you all. And Carly wanted to share something. And before I share some words to close the panel and go into questions and answers, but Carly, would you like to share now or after that part?
Now.
Okay.
We can. So I feel like this is a really good discussion to continue, and it is so beneficial for our Breath of Life participants to be in this dialogue with Melashne and Stan. And I would like to give the groups, however, the opportunity, if you feel it's beneficial to have a breakout session right now to work with your group, at least to plan another session during the week, or to really focus on your final project and the sentence making and using of your language. I'm going to open the breakout rooms and give you all the option to take that time now to go to the breakout, or to stay here in the dialogue and go into a Q&A with the panelists. So I leave that totally up to the teams.
Absolutely, and since I'm going to be asking just or with the questions and answers for the Chochenyo group, for those who are in my group, I'll be in our group at about 12:45. So you're welcome to stay in the discussion, or if you wanted to join the group, you're welcome to as well. And I'll be there in about 15 minutes.
Okay.
Wonderful. And was that all you had to share, Carly, for the moment?
That's all. I just wanted to make that quick announcement for people that needed it.
Thank you, Carly. Thank you. And thank you both, Melashne and Stan, for everything that you shared today. And in Chochenyo language, which is the East Bay Ohlone language, I like to say, Kishkana roket arship te kam horshenonoi at hemmenya kam ukshare okwe kam nonokma at hemmen tamak moekma Californiatica. So thank you both for your good words and all of the good work that you do to strengthen your own languages, and for the good work that you do for the collective, for our California people. We both, you know, all of us appreciate everything that you shared. These words, they're moving, and that's just being honest. You know, it's coming from people that that are so cared for in our community and loved and respected. You know, when you're sharing these words, we feel that love as well. You know, that you have for the collective, and you know, that desire that you have to not just only see your own languages grow stronger, but all of our languages. You know, that's obvious in the words you share. And I'd like to personally just say, I'm very grateful to you both. And on behalf of ICOLS, I know that we all share that same sentiment. I wanted to open this up now for questions and answers. I see that there's a few questions that are already in the chat box, but this will end my moderating of the discussion. I also quickly wanted to mention Lauren has a Dentalium shirt on, it looks like. So that's very cool. I just wanted to notice, make a recognize that for a moment. That's something really special. So thank you, Melashne, excuse me, and Stan, both of you, for everything that you shared. And for those who have questions, you can either raise your hand, or I can read out some of these that I think are already out here. Does that sound good? Okay, how about if I read the ones that we have written already, and then we'll start with a queue. We have Leanne already, who just raised her hand. And if you have a question, it's easier just to write it in the chat box so that we can go through them in an order and nobody gets lost in the transition. So the very first question it looks like that we have here is, let's see, do you have suggestions for people who are here that have no speakers, that are trying to, do you think we answered that one? I feel like— I
think we answered that one.
Okay, do either of you have advice for going forward, covering languages? Okay, I think we answered that one as well.
Could I add something real quick to that?
Of course, Stan.
One of the things, when we talk about language proficiency, especially with a language that has no speakers left, I think one of the priorities would be to develop situational fluency. And we've talked about the language nest, where what I would recommend for people who are researching their language, if you're researching it, you want to use it. You want to put it in a context where it's going to be applicable. So what I would recommend is going to, first going to the different rooms of the house, different things you do, put down the terms that you would use in those, and then start developing the language phrases. Then you can use various techniques like the ASLA, Accelerated Secondary Language Acquisition Method, in order to gain quick recall, and then film it. Film an actual role play when you're using that. And this is something, and film it over and over again, and start using that for review. As you gain proficiency there, you can move on to another. As you continue with that, then you can bring on other things. But that is something that I would recommend, especially for people who have no speakers left. So,
thank you, Stan. So I think with that, we can begin answering or fielding any questions that anybody has in the general Zoom session that's here right now. I saw Leanne, she has a hand up. So Leanne, why don't we start with you? Oh, Leanne, you're on mute. Here, I'm gonna.
Here we go.
Yeah.
I actually, my hand was up because I was saying, because I wanted to say, oh, my question has already been answered.
Oh, okay.
But I do have other questions, lots of other questions. One thing I might like each of you to focus on is, I know you teach, I know Stan teaches a class, for example, and I know Melashne teaches a family. And I'm just wondering if you could say something about your teaching techniques, because I think a lot of people here are teachers themselves and trying to use their language to teach it to others.
Well, I just want to say I did teach language for 34 years, and my techniques and approaches changed drastically. I mean, at the beginning, when I look back at that, it's kind of embarrassing because I was doing this crazy model of, word for word swaps, which is a horrible mistake. Like, so if I, hold up this, can you see this glass? I say, this is a glass and it's called metatna and it's blue. There was only one Dani word there. Like, now I realize that I should have said, D metatna, he shan. More like ASLA. But I mean, just because I didn't know any better. I mean, I was raised in their normal school system, which did things the way they did it. So I didn't know. So I had changed over the years, but as much as context stuff that you can do, like even, with the physical response, sit-ups, stand up, sit down, all that stuff too, helps lock it into your body memory. If you can find any recordings, have that running just, during downtime, just, they don't need to know what it's saying, just they can hear it if there's any of that around. Any way that you can get that data going in their, their prosody, just their sound system in their head, in their ears. Yeah, I just changed drastically over the years, to where I was realizing that you've got to start somewhere with a blank slate, sort of, and then you've got to fill it up, with like ASLA, with pictures, or, with short phrases or terminologies, or, actual, showing things is one of the most powerful ways. You don't have to you don't want to make it abstract. You want to make it concrete, real instruction. We're going to talk about a blue glass today. And the kid's going, what? I mean, oh, di, metatna tletchen we nachalita tishrinis. Oh, I mean, even though I didn't understand what I'm saying, they're actually connecting it to something. And then whatever you want to try to teach people, make it meaningful. Like I said, you don't want to talk about, how the universe started on the first day. You want to talk about my mom and my dad, or me and you, and running and laughing, or something that is, concrete in your world, their world too. So I say over the years, I changed amazing, Stan, you might have started out on the upper end there, maybe in yours, I don't know,
Well, thank you, Malashne, and thank you, Leanne, for asking that question. So we have another question that's here. Are there any differences in teaching different age? Oh, excuse me?
Stan didn't answer yet.
Oh, excuse me, Stan. We're jumping around. Thank you, Leanne, for having me take a step back. Okay, Stan, take it away.
Some of the, I mean, it's like with you. I mean, when I first started, I inherited a class from somebody who was teaching animals, colors, numbers up to 10, and greetings, and that was it throughout the whole class. And it plateaued very quickly. And then as soon as a new student came, they started all over again. And it's, you know, people, do we need to know numbers? Sure. Do we need to know animals? Yeah. Colors? Yes. But that's not using the language. So being able to integrate the things that we are going to use in the class, some of the things, you know, accelerated secondary language acquisition, some of the techniques there. Other techniques are language immersion pods. Mm-hmm. If somebody's going to take a class, if somebody's going to want to learn, the goal is to speak it. And one wants to put them in a situation where they're going to be in conversation, not third party where they, you know, well, and I'm here, let me qualify that, you know, that statement I'm making. Sure, you want somebody to be able to have third party recall. I mean, be able to, you know, comment on things and, you know, objects, things like that. But you want the person to be able to communicate. And this is where language immersion pods come in, and, you know, being able to sit down and use the language with another person or a group of people. And one of the things that we do is time the people in their language use. We'll time them for up to 30 minutes. Can they stay in the language without using English? And that is the goal, because if they can stay in the language for 30 minutes, they can really stay in the language all day. And that is our goal, to generate speakers. So we will do that. And I like what you said. Do you want to talk about how the universe was created in the first class in the language? Good luck. You know, this is something for the, I'll just say for the more advanced, with one group of very advanced students, we said, okay, what you're going to talk about in the next 20 minutes, all of you are going to talk about the planet Pluto. And they all looked at me and go, huh? And I go, start doing it. Stay in the language. And one of them came out and said, well, we don't have a word for Pluto. I go, well, you better come up with something. Get back in the language. Don't use English. So they were talking about the mutt, the land, but the ninth ball that's, you know, far away. And they were describing that. And you know what? They were able to describe what was going on. So that is what we want them to do. We want things that they can use every day. And, you know, as they continue to grow, they, you know, it's like anybody else with language. And that's how, you know, that's revitalization of language. And also looking at models such as the DLI, the Defense Language Institute, which teaches people really any language within a year. You know, it's total immersion that they're doing in it. So that's one of our goals at Kumeyaay Community College. We want to develop a component where we can keep people in a house, a safe house, just using the language for 1 month. Now, we understand they got to go to work, but when they come to the house, it's all using the language. So,
one of the things, Stan, that I remember when I first met you was we were at a language training, and you set up a mini casino, a mini store, a mini, like all of these things, and encourage people to stay in language the entire time. And it was one of these things for these real practical situations of staying focused in language that I still remember that. So that was a really cool activity that you had.
Oh,
so,
thank you. They even put me in jail for cheating at the casino. I went before a judge, and had a good time.
Thank you both for answering that question. And so now I'll move on to this other one. Excuse me, Stan, for having that a little short. Sitlali here, did I pronounce that correctly? So she asked, who's Tongva, are there any differences in teaching different age children? Any questions for teaching, or any suggestions for teaching under 5 years old, 6 to 12 years old, and then for teenagers? And whoever feels more comfortable to jump in, feel.
I'll start out real quick. We'll have to warn you, I have to leave at 12:45. But anyway, yes, absolutely a difference. Although, if you're starting out with an adult population that knows zero, yeah, maybe the biggest difference between children and people that are adults is that children don't have a bias yet. They don't have fear. They don't have that dialogue going, oh, that don't sound right, or what kind of word is that? That sounds foreign. They don't have that clatter. So the advantage to working with children is they're just like, oh, la la la, slash slash la, ha ha ha. They'll even sing. They don't care. You get an adult to try to sing, they're like going crazy. So adults have a couple of things going on, in that their ears have formed to one language, or hopefully they're bilingual, they've got at least 2 ears, and that becomes a bias in itself. So I can't hear, right? I can't hear that if I'm an English speaker per se. So we have some problems as an adult because our ear has been trained to hear either English or Spanish or whichever the language you have, and you're hearing these new sounds that your ear can't even really pick up. It can in time, but it's different. So as an adult, there are more challenges, again, with children. And then, of course, what your subject matter is with children is going to be very different. Like simple, not that they're simpletons, but short things. Attention span is only this long. And then, you got to keep moving. You can't just, do a lecture. Nobody can handle that really, but especially with learning language. But so yeah, there's a lot of differences, but we adults really are limited because of our ears experience, our brains experience, the imprinting of grammar that's unconscious in our brains. It's a part of who we are, and we're trying to learn a new, not just a language, we're learning a grammar, which is a new language, and we're learning a new writing system, which is a new language. We're hearing new sounds, which is a new language. So yes, we adults have some things to work on, and be conscious that they're there. Doesn't make it impossible, but at the same time, working with children, they're just, my granddaughter who's just turned 3, I can give her, and she goes, and she doesn't even have a problem with it, but tell an adult, they go, and they get all ashamed, like you said, but don't ever be ashamed, but, just practice.
Thank you. Stan, would you like to share anything?
Sure. What I would like to say is, it's indicative of the belt that is used on a cradle board with human people. There's 7 stars on it, or 7 diamonds, and each one represents a part in their life. So a baby, a young child, this is, just like what you're saying, their vocabulary is limited. What do children like to do? What do little kids like to do? They like to play. They like to explore. So using language that focuses on this. And the other thing too, and I'll tell you, if you can get some of the children to speak, because if they're talking to me, they're going to see me as a fossil. I'm one of those old guys. But the ones that they're going to interact with are going to be other children. If you can teach children, a group of children, the language, and start inserting 1 or 2 that you want them to learn the language just by virtue of what they're using. If they stay in the language, that child will learn the language. They'll learn more from other people in their generation than adults really. And with that time, that's how they interact. And as people continue, like teenagers, their way of learning is different. Their priorities are different. What are they interested in? Their hormones are kicking in, relationships. So, there's going to be a lot, gossiping, talking about, oh, she's pretty, so things like that. And people like to do what? They like to make slang words. So you may see people using your language and developing their own way. I remember a couple of girls, I've shared this before. We were coming up with terms that we didn't have. We came up with the term for a vacuum cleaner called matmaputso, the thing that sucks up dirt. And these teenagers were playing a game, and one was winning, and the other got mad. She looked at him, matmaputso, called her a dirt sucker. And there, which wasn't what we planned it for, but that's how a language, people are going to use that from time to time. We still use it every now. We laugh about it, but and for the language teacher, it's important that you're flexible, remain flexible. And you know, if they're using the language, you know, just, I mean, I enjoy listening to them, but yeah, with children, if you can teach other children the language and bring them in, you know, they'll look at those children or somebody a little bit older than them as, you know, somebody that, like a hero or role model. They'll start learning more from them.
I want to butt in real quick and thank every one of you that you know, give me the opportunity to be with you today. Appreciate all of your work. I admire it very much. I think it's very important. I think as a platform builder for who you are as a human being, and you have a right to that, and you have the right to the joy of that and the clarity that comes from that and the things that fills your heart and your body and mind. It's all your right. You have a right to this joy. And so I just want to, again, thank you for being here today. I have to take off. My grandson turned 11, so we're going to have a basketball shootout. So,
All right.
and so outside activity, got to take care of this you know, this thing called COVID. So anyway, I just wanted to say after and continue your work, and you know, hope to see you around.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. And thank you, Stan, as well. So as we're all here today, let's all give Stan and Milashne. You can either give an O, spirit fingers, round of applause, whatever you want to give. But thank you all for your words and everything that you shared. Oh, thank you very much. We're grateful to you both, and we know that you'll be in our world in the future as well. So thank you both. We hope so. Milashne and Stan, for everything that you shared, and we look forward to more conversations with you. For the Chochenyo group, we're going to go into our session right now. For anybody else who has a session, you have about 15 minutes, or actually about 10 minutes, it looks like.
Actually, we always, at the end of the session, we leave the groups open in case people need the extra time. I'm questioning whether we should do a closing or maybe just do a closing and make it optional for people to come back. What do you guys think?
I'm fine doing a closing right now, and then we could just check in with our group afterwards to schedule another breakout session. Very grateful to be a part of this organization and this work to keep our language strong. So, our Chochenyo team, we're going to break out right now. Thank you all.
Great job, Vince. Thank you, everyone.